have the audience when everybody's tired, and so I try to be short. Something difficult for me, people that knows me. So I don't know why they asked me for that. So the idea was to present some conclusions of the day that are a little bit difficult to summarize because there are many, many ideas complementary. So I tried to go through what I think were the most important ideas of each presenter. So let me start with in the order that they were presented. I will begin with Professor Stone, who talked about teaching for understanding. So the main ideas that I could keep with me, and it's a challenge for me because I try to explain to you if I could understand anything about what happened today, is that understanding is actually an active learning process, and it's an active learning process of sense-making. And what it was also quite interesting in her presentation is this idea of multiple intelligence. She challenges us thinking about how we understand, actually. How can we say we understand? I was thinking about, well, through experience, that it appeared many times in the presentations. Experience also plays an important role. And experience is not only within a closed room. Experience comes from a social setting where we live situations, and from them we can say we can understand. And maybe the way we can predict things. This is a way to test ourselves if we have understood something. And teaching for understanding, she puts on the example of on the other role of the teacher, and she uses an interesting metaphor that is cultivation. And I think it resumes a lot of the idea of the new paradigm she presented about this idea that the teacher, in fact, it has to take care that the plant grows in a certain way, but the plant will grow in itself, given the good conditions for that. So I think this is a good metaphor to understand our role as teachers at the same time. And the role of environment in this cultivation metaphor also is integrated with all the agents that take part in the learning process. She mentioned the community itself, and including the managers of the institutions. And the third idea I would remark is the idea of technology. So which is the role of technology in all that situation? And while she was talking about how media, how tools can enhance and provide possibilities for learning, it came to my mind another presentation that was given here, a discussion we had with Contact North, the people from Canada. It's a consortium of colleges, where they say, well, we use the notion of technology-enhanced learning, but we don't mean the same thing. We talk about technology-enabled learning. So I think this quite nuance between the terms is very important, and how actually technology enables different kinds of learning and not just augments or reproduces usual ways of learning and teaching that will challenge the way, as Sarah presented later, the way that the teacher must be also trained to understand how technology, the role of technology in teaching and learning. The second presentation was from Ferran Ruiz. I actually like the way she presented and framed the problems, because I usually feel as a professor and teacher a little bit guilty every time we criticize in education. And she put the accent on management. So I say, oh, thank God, okay, we're not the only one guilty in this process. Manager has something to do. So it's also a challenge for managers now that we are asking them to give to set the rules, the exact rules that we have to apply in order to actually change our practice and have the support of that. He also began explaining that the concept of e-learning was born in the more corporate context, and this concept was in a certain way exported to different contexts, and it actually doesn't work in the same way, because different contexts, different educational levels and institutions have different needs of that. So let me advertise something here. We had last year we did a research and development project about the concept and definition of e-learning, and we've been exploring that in detail. So we have developed something that is a first phase of that in terms of trying to understand the complex meaning of e-learning, how it applies in different contexts. Answering to my question, I want to come back to that idea what a business reflects what the manager does. What was, for me, was a very important idea that was also developed here is who are to whom are they accountable, the managers? And then you talk about the notion of values and the need for courage in these people in terms of challenging the system itself. Sarah Guri, well, she was the critical voice here, and she says, well, let's revise and review our assumptions here. Let's think about all the things we are reading and that are more, sometimes coming from more the business part of the e-learning, saying developing concepts like technology, digital natives and technology savvy by nature, because they are actually new generations, so they come with that, with the ADN. So you challenge that notion, and we have okay, Albert knows much more than me that he's been involved in a project that in a certain way questions with data that notion of digital native, that actually is not the way it's sold in books in Amazon, for example. And the other main idea that is always a depth of institutions is how they support their teachers in training them and giving them the tools to actually know how to do and how to perform with technologies in teaching and learning. Next presentation came from Betty Collis, where she actually talked about another context, very interesting also for us and challenging for us, because we usually don't hear a lot of presentation about work-based learning. And not only work-based learning, but work-based learning related to higher education, and not also a typical example of technical training, but also at the level of PhD engineers, and at a higher level of what we can consider academy and education and the workplace. And the challenge was actually think about better ways to integrate both institutions, because they have to open the dialogue actually in both ways, not only in one way. And what I found interesting in terms of what we are discussing also today is about the challenges that opens e-learning, is this notion of personal development plan and the need for breaking within institutions or higher education institutions this notion of closed programs composed with different courses, and this has been more flexible in this sense. We are receiving that claim from all parts of the workplaces, the enterprises, even the learners themselves. And I think there's some movements in that sense. And I know that people like George Siemens is exploring this kind of approaches with more competency-based learning and thinking about different ways of granularity in terms of educational offer. And the last presentation of Terry Anderson deal with the new demands in the same way of in the learning society, the student expectation about what they actually come to look for at the universities, and the technology, the opportunities that offer technology today to explore new ways of teaching and learning, and new models of enriching the educational offer. He puts quite in a sincere way that we are using the same institutional models as usually, not only in management, as was highlighted 100 years old, but I think universities, we use a much more older model. If you go deep into the analysis, we can find it maybe 1,000 years old, probably. And we are dealing with less public resources, so we have to react to that. And we are actually exploring new ways of dealing with that. And I think this kind of model that were developed of thinking interaction in different ways and trying to translate that into costs and a possible sustainable model within the institution is also a good idea that was stressed today here. In this sense, we have, with all this idea, reinvent university. Even if we have more skeptical people in that, but we actually need to do it. So one of the main conclusions, because I cannot draw many conclusions that are so specific, but one of the main conclusions is that we cannot stop the wheel, and we actually need to think about new ways in which the universities have to organize themselves to adapt to the actual needs of the society from many different agents and institutions. So as a conclusion, I would say that achievements, we didn't mention very many of those, but I think there are many achievements. I think that theoretical models that were proposed here today are kind of achievement because they are also based on experience. So they translate in a certain way practices that are really happening. So achievement we have also in our university. For example, I can talk about work. We can prove that we can teach online and people can learn online. And if you go to the newest Law and See survey about online education, achievement is also from the part of the expansion of online learning around the world and in higher education specifically. So we have some gains in the last years, but we also have a lot of questions, challenges, many of them. So challenges we have at different levels. We have at the institutional level thinking about new models. We have at the teacher level about transforming our profession to adapt to this new scenario. And also at the technological level, is the way of developing new technologies that actually support the kind of learning we are asking for, and they translate actually the theoretical models we have, and that we know they work very well. So this is all for me. So thank you very much for staying here late, and then there's a closing words from Albert now. So thank you.
Okay, so I will be really short, because I think if we can finish a little bit earlier than we expected. In fact, our first thing was to finish at 1:30, but then we put 2 o'clock because we know that things become later sometimes, but it's perfectly okay. So first of all, thank you, really thank you to all the participants, especially those that have come from far away. So those that have been here, especially because of this event, and that you have visited. I hope that you will enjoy the city today and maybe tomorrow too. So enjoy the city. Secondly, thank you to the speakers. You know that I'm very grateful with you. And also thank you to the chairmen of the sessions, Tony, Uriol, Marcelo, because you have also given a different perspective than the usual ones that we are used to listen to. And thirdly, but not at the end of that, thank you to the ones that have taken over the organization of the event too. I would like to highlight some words of the rector at the very beginning of this session, and especially the fact that we consider that it's the responsibility of this university to organize this kind of events in order to discuss about the topics that are core for our activity. There are a number of activities in this sense. I also thank Emma because she's here and attending to this session, but I would like also point out on the activities that the UNESCO chair organize yearly and that focus also in this kind of aims that we have. Particularly this event, this seminar, had the aim to reflect on all the collateral issues regarding e-learning. So not just tools or particular experiences, but the context in which e-learning can be developed, and trying to go beyond that particular experiences that we really, is really rich to share them, but from time to time we need to put all these experiences in a much more general framework that may make us to understand deeply what e-learning is, or at least what e-learning can be. And let me use also not only the term e-learning, but also the other one that I think that in the very near future we should use much more, that is online education as a general term that I think that is what we do particularly. However, as you have mentioned in several of the speeches, in fact, 20 years ago, we heard that we should change. Today, we still heard that we should change. So probably we need to change, of course. The thing is, towards where? We are going to change what? And probably when we discuss that, not all of us have the same perception. The where is not exactly the same. The what is not exactly the same. And of course, the how is not exactly the same. Because every particular background is conditioning very much what we are perceiving, which is the where, the what, and the how. So we really hope that this kind of seminar can help us to find points of interaction that can make us to understand each other better, and then to go on a little bit faster to this particular change that we probably don't know exactly how it is. My final statement is my personal conclusion, if I may, and I just would like to add this idea that I think it's something that I have heard at least in sometimes very clearly, and other times maybe a little bit more collaterally. That is, what we need is exactly to support teachers to make the students to be better skilled autonomous students. So let's go to support our teachers in order to help their students to be much more autonomous. And probably the mainstream who is changing, it seems to be changing everything, maybe we can find it in a particular point. Then, in this case, maybe the expected future, which is no longer as it used to be, will be better for everyone. And our main goal of increasing the quality of education, no matter the method we are using to do it, probably it will be much more real at that time. Thank you very much. Enjoy the weekend, and I hope that we will meet very early again. Thank you.